We come from and live on land considered sacred by indigenous people known as Bannock, Paiute, Shoshone, and many other tribes that lived here sustainably for thousands of years. We strive to understand and reframe our responsibilities to land, to community. In the spirit of respectful reciprocity, we honor the original caretakers of this place. We affirm the relationships we have to each other, including our relations to animals and insects that inhabit the water, land, and sky. We recognize the relationship, the responsibility to quiet creeks, rushing rivers, rustling grasses, to sprawling forests, to the brilliant palettes of the sky, to the roots that grip the soil, to the earth beneath our feet. Water is life. To all of us affected by the boarding school revelations, may we be granted compassionate understanding. May we find healing in the harm that lives in our history. We honor and support the right to sovereignty for our indigenous neighbors. We acknowledge that a land acknowledgement is not enough. Now, let us breathe together. Let us take a moment to enjoy the delicious air, the oxygen provided by tree. Hold to the warm light of sun. Consider the solidity, the groundedness of earth. Flow with refreshing, life-giving water. Let the mud settle. Find clarity of mind and spirit. Welcome our ancestors. Enjoy this present moment together.
Good morning. Excuse me. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I am Timothy Ellis, your intern minister. I'm joined by Sharene Watsen, our celebrant for today's service, Mike Lemieux, our AV tech coordinator, Carrie Bastian, our music director, Jem Emerson-Paige, our director of family ministries, and so many greeters and Zoom hosts and coffee makers and RE teachers. Thank you, everyone who has made this service possible. This is a community gathered to nurture spiritual growth, real connection, and faithful action for a better world. All who join us in the spirit of curiosity, love, and justice are welcome here this morning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, your presence is a blessing. Whether you are here every Sunday, once or twice a year, or here this morning for the very first time, we are so glad that you are here. Welcome to those of us joining virtually, if we all want to turn and wave. Good morning. We are so glad that you are with us as our community is bigger and more vibrant than this building alone. We know it takes a lot of courage to cross the threshold and enter into a new community, either in person or virtually. So to our newcomers, we are especially glad that you have joined us today. We invite you to introduce yourselves after the service or in the chat, and fill out a newcomer card so we can keep you connected with everything happening in this fellowship. I have a few announcements for us this morning. The first is that plate partner voting closes today. Our plate partners are the community organizations that we share a quarter of our unpledged offering support with each month. The congregation nominates and then votes on these community organizations to say, who do we as a group, who do we as a people want to support and be in relationship with? The nominations were a few weeks ago, and Members and friends are invited and heartily encouraged to vote for a plate partner. You will find the link to that in the chat, or it has gone out in your email a couple of times now. Additionally, thank you for everyone who has been a part of the annual giving drive. Wasn't that incredible? We can have some of the testimonials, the events. It was phenomenal. There is still time to make a pledge if you haven't, either filling out pledge cards online or putting them in the boxes in the entryways. Also, Sunday, May 7th, so next week, after the service, there will be a Q&A with the board of the congregation to share the highlights of the budget that we'll be presenting at our annual meeting on May 21st. So stick around, get a chance to look at what the budget is looking like for the next year, ask your questions, so then we can have a meeting together on May 21st. Our fellowship donates 25% of our unpledged plate offerings to our plate partners, a local organization whose mission aligns with our social justice ministries. For the month of April, it is the Citizens Climate Lobby International, a grassroots environmental group that trains and supports volunteers to build relationships with their elected representatives in order to influence policy locally, nationally, and globally. There are many ways that you can make a financial gift: online, on our website, using the Vanco app, or in one of our drop boxes. However you choose to give, you nurture our community, and we are grateful. Our spiritual theme for the month is resistance. And in today's service, we're gonna explore some of those tricky questions of risk, and how do we make the decisions of how do we involve ourselves in it? What are our fears? How do we navigate that risk individually and together? As we enter into this time of worship, let us take a moment to breathe together. Fill your body with breath, knowing that our breath connects us to one another, to our bodies, and to our planet. Our breath offers us the opportunity for stillness, to tune into our spiritual center, to listen deeply to our heart's own longing. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-riven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp that lights where I tread. Thy way is steep, past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless stream. If you would like to please rise for our first song this morning.
Each week, we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of hope, love, and justice. We join in this lighting in solidarity and community with thousands of other Unitarian Universalists lighting chalices today in churches, homes, and in virtual worship spaces, reminding us that we are connected to one another and to a larger community of faith and love. We invite a child to light the chalice to remind us of the shining light that lives in each of us, to remind us of our responsibility to our children, and to give us hope for the future. Today, we have Grayson Peterson, a first-time chalice lighter, to light our chalice. As we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you online to light your own chalices at home and share in the chat where your chalices are lit.
It is my honor to introduce Grayson Peterson to you all. Grayson is the child of Haley West and the proud owner of Momo the dog and Zuko the bearded dragon. Grayson loves video games and basketball and soccer, and if you love or are interested in any of that, come talk to Grayson. Grayson, thank you. Congratulations.
With our collective chalices lit in all our spaces, we offer you this call to worship written by our own Reverend Sarah Lawal. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all that there is and all that is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love, love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames we rise. Come, let us worship together. As we move into our time for all ages, I invite all of the children to come up and join Emily and I, and we'll watch our video and story together.
The Proudest Blue by Ibtiaj Muhammad with S.K. Ali, art by Hatem Ali. Mama holds out the pink. Mama loves pink. But Asiya shakes her head. I know why. Behind the counter is the brightest blue, the color of the ocean if you squint your eyes and pretend there's no line between the water and the sky. It's the first day of hijab. Asiya knows it. I know it. We're sisters. The next day I wait. A new backpack, new light-up shoes. I feel special. I feel like twirling. Asiya comes out of the house, and I stop. It's the most beautiful first day of school ever. I'm walking with a princess, so I pretend I'm one too. But even princesses have to stop to cross the street. Asiya takes my hand in hers and says, "Come on, Faiza." We speed walk it. 14 steps, 14 light-ups to get across. Asiya takes me to my line first, hugs me goodbye. I turn to watch her leave, give a little curtsy to see the princess going to the 6th grade area. She's easy to see. Her hijab smiles at me the whole way. My first hijab is going to be blue too. "What's on your sister's head?" the girl in front of me whispers. I whisper back, "A scarf." I don't know why it came out a whisper. I try again, louder now. "A scarf, hijab." "Oh," she whispers back. Asiya's hijab is not a whisper. Asiya's hijab is like the sky on a sunny day. The sky isn't a whisper. It's always there, special and regular. The first day of wearing hijab is important, Mama had said. It means being strong. I turn, but I can't see the blue anymore. I run to the big kid's side, 27 steps to see Asiya. I need to give her another hug. I need to see her smile. "Faiza?" Asiya's eyes wonder why I'm here. I ask, "Are you excited about the first day of hijab?" She nods, smiling big, and I feel better. Someone laughs from nearby. A boy pointing at Asiya. Why? Everyone looks really immediately annoyed. Asiya's hijab isn't a laugh. Asiya's hijab is like the ocean waving to the sky. It's always there, strong and friendly. Some people won't understand your hijab, Mom had said. But if you understand who you are, one day they will too. In class, I draw a picture. 2 princesses in hijab having a picnic on an island where the ocean meets the sky. The girl who whispered in line says she likes it. She says it so loud the teacher comes over to see it. I wonder if Asiya drew a picture today too. Recess time is for 5 cartwheels in a row. I land the last one near the 6th graders, near Asiya and her friends, near a boy yelling, "I'm gonna pull that tablecloth off your head." Asiya's hijab isn't a tablecloth. Asiya's hijab is blue, only blue. Asiya turns away. Her friends turn away. They race to the middle of the schoolyard, their shoes pounding the pavement, playing tag. Mama said, "Don't carry around the hurtful words that others say. Drop them. They are not yours to keep. They belong only to those who said them." It takes me 48 steps to get away from the yelling boy. After school, I look around. I look for whispers, laughs, and shouts. But I only see Asiya waiting for me, like it's a regular day. She's smiling. She's strong. We cross the road hand in hand. I can't wait to get home to show Mama the picture I drew. To show Asiya I'm wearing the same hijab in it. Because Asiya's hijab is like the ocean and the sky, no line between them, saying hello with a loud wave, saying I'll always be here, like sisters, like me and Asiya.
My friends, today in our children's RE class, we are going to explore the strength it takes to stick with it, to stand by who we are, and to be our most authentic self day in and day out. We often resist by enduring, by persevering, by keeping going, sticking with our faith, our true and authentic selves, sticking with our values and our heart's yeses. Children, ages 5 through 5th grade, join me in our RE classroom this way after we sing the song. Youth, your next session will be next Sunday. Let's sing.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
Our reading today is by Adrienne Marie Brown. When those with power are doing inhumane or anti-planet things, our choice to be disruptive, to be impolite, is one of the ways we wage small resistance that can become mass resistance and large-scale cultural and political transformation. We have learned from this from our ancestors in our lineages who helped expose and break massive systems like chattel slavery or Holocaust genocide. Small resistance historically has looked like a wrench in the gears, a slowing things down, a rancid ingredient in a master's food, enslaved people teaching each other to read and write, letting a fugitive sleep in your basement, learning how to give each other reproductive care, slipping each other cannabis for medicine. Small resistance these days looks like turning people who are supporting and promoting racist, transphobic, and inhumane policies away from your door. It looks like stopping next to police cars that have pulled people over and watching or filming them until the person stopped is allowed to leave. It looks like naming isms and phobias in real time and learning together. It looks like local direct actions at the homes of congresspeople who make decisions that harm humans or the planet.
Each week, we take time to acknowledge the many joys among us and to grieve our many sorrows and losses, so that we might lift that burden for each other and receive the blessings of this community. A reminder, you can submit your joys and sorrows online each week, and every month an email goes out of our community joys and sorrows to be connected. As we begin, please hold the following thoughts in your hearts. The sorrow that Linda Gilbert's brother, Don Gill, passed away on April 6th from a stroke. She's lost 3 siblings in the past 2.5 years, in addition to her husband, Fred, and is dealing with some loneliness. For joys, David and Edna Trott and Leanne McDonnell share a joy that their daughter Tala has been accepted in the Masters of Social Work program at the University of British Columbia. Ellie and Matt Gooding celebrated their 51st wedding anniversary on April 15th. Congratulations. And I have a joy to share, which is that I accepted a position as a chaplaincy residency program at University of California, San Francisco. Thank you. I'm really excited about it. Let's take a moment to breathe together. If you are holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to speak their name aloud into this community of love, that we may hold them with you. May the arms of this community hold all our joys and sorrows, those named and those that remain silent close to our hearts. May we feel the grace that surrounds us and be transformed by the spirit of life and love, with warmth to celebrate our joys and with gentleness to soothe our aching hearts. Breathe with me. Fill your body with breath. Breathe into this sacred space. Breathe with this beloved community, filled with loving kindness. Breathe with wholeheartedness. Listen to what is calling to you. So the day after House Bill 71, the horrible bill banning gender-affirming care for our trans youth here in Idaho was signed, I went to the protest that was at the State House. It was small and a silent protest, primarily had youth from Boise High, but also some adults. And one woman up the stairs at the door holding a sign very much against these youth. The protest was beautiful. It was exciting to see all of those kids, to have them see adults, to be witness to our pain together. And towards the end of it, one of the youths that was there, that was near me, yelled something towards the woman. She was holding a sign that said, "Thank you, Governor Baker," and the youth kind of yelled it out at her. You realize you're the only one thanking him, right? Why do you think that is? And my gut response in that moment, which I'm not proud of, was to say or do something to have the youth not say that. Out of an overwhelming urge for protection and love, to instead say, no, I want to protect you from this potential risk that I see. That my fear is bigger in this moment, even though outside of that first impulse, I know that having voice, giving voice, being able to yell back is the most important and healing thing that can be happening there. But as an adult, I hold that risk differently. And definitely differently than when I was that youth. When I was in high school in about 2011, Scott Walker in Wisconsin had just pushed through a bill to strip all of our unions of their collective bargaining, and I was part of organizing a walkout from my school. And when you have a mass walkout from a high school, there's the people really committed, and there's the people who want to get out of school for the day. And I was helping hold up the back of the line and make everything go right. And I hear these couple of kids say, "Hey, let's flip that car." And I find myself suddenly standing on a snowbank with some other person in between these youth and that car to try to keep the protest going the way that we're hoping for it to go. That my calculation of risk is so completely different from where it is now sometimes, or my first instinct feels so completely different. Because how we feel about risk changes over time, and it can be a hard thing to figure out. It can be a hard thing to name. As adults, we have different experiences and different priorities. After a protest in DC where I saw a friend get hurt, I had panic attacks at other protests because I knew what the risk could be in a different way. I felt different. And I imagine that that calculation might be the same for many of you, trying to figure out what is a risk I'm willing or able to take, what is my fear. The risks that we take as young people without thinking versus the ones that we hesitate for as adults. And there's not a lot of good places to talk about that. There's not a lot of good places to think through the navigating the fear and how do we want to be a part of resistance and community and voice together, while also acknowledging that there is real fear. I want to tell you a story. It's a Bible story. We're going to get through it together. It'll be okay. I promise. I'm sharing this story, and it's okay that we can talk about these stories as a text that millions of people have found meaningful over millennia. And so we can take the deep breath to be together in this and try to figure out what can we glean from it. And I also know some of you might be able to tell these stories better than me, so we're gonna go with it together. This is the story of Daniel and the lion's den. Daniel is a friend and advisor of King Nebuchadnezzar. They have a great relationship, given lots of advice, doing their thing. Daniel also happens to be Jewish. Some of the king's other advisors are jealous and frustrated of this relationship and Daniel's influence. And they get together and figure out how to put laws into place that prohibit Daniel from practicing Judaism. Eventually, laws that are punishable by death. King Nebuchadnezzar, over time, approved these laws, kind of was told, instead of people worshiping their gods, they're gonna worship you, a little bit of flattery, not really understanding the implication. And so he approved them, and these laws went into place. And he didn't really know the consequences. Until one day, these other advisors of the king come and arrest Daniel and say that he is to be put to death for worshiping his God instead of the king. And the king is shocked and frustrated and horrified and doesn't want his friend to die. And the way Daniel is supposed to be killed is he is put in a lion's den, and in the morning there will be lions, and he will be eaten by the lions. And the story tells us that the king looked all night for a way to get Daniel out of this. He tried to find loopholes, other justifications, other laws that could take effect. Tells us that he stayed up all night trying to figure it out. But he couldn't in all of his books and papers and power. And so in the morning, Daniel was to be killed by these lions. Now Daniel lives, God intervenes, and the lions, I think they sleep together. They just hang out, and the lions don't kill him. But the piece of this story that I get really stuck on is about Nebuchadnezzar staying up all night trying to find a loophole, trying to find the right legal reason, the justification that he can put together for why Daniel shouldn't be killed. As opposed to the fact that, he's the king. He could let the lions grow if there's no lions. Daniel can't be killed by lions. He could help Daniel mysteriously disappear. There are so many creative options that the king could have taken. When he spent his time up all night looking at these old law books, trying to find out a reason, he could have let the lions grow. He could have helped Daniel escape. He could have stepped outside of that legality, that focus on the rules and the justification, and said, I know what is right here, and I'm going to do what I can, anything I can, to make this right. Instead, he spent the night with the law books. I think often when we tell these stories around resistance, we imagine ourselves as the Daniel, the one who was speaking up for his beliefs, his self, his identity, and then push back. But I want to invite us to think about ourselves as Nebuchadnezzar as well. When are we looking for, this is the legal option, this is the right option, the option that makes sense within our current system, versus when are we willing to intervene and let the lions grow? Like our story and so many points in history, it's a lot easier to look back on it and say, there's no question of how these people should have acted. We can look back and say, obviously, Nebuchadnezzar should have let the lions go, should have helped Daniel escape. When we look at our history of civil rights movements, of justice movements, movements against fascism and oppression, we have the feeling of, obviously, we know how those people should have acted. That there's no question, but there's a lot more questions when we're in it ourselves, isn't there? Of what do we do? How much risk can I take? How do I keep being a human with my human responsibilities, my job, my family, taking a moment to breathe? How do I hold all of that and maintain that when I'm just like struggling to get through the day and still stay engaged with resistance or justice? There's a lot more questions when we're the ones in it ourselves in these moments. What is the risk that we can take? And how can we still be humans with a human life and being able to live that life? And I want to invite us to consider today the questions of like, what is being asked of us? And also, what is our fear actually? The question of what is being asked of us. We often think of, the people who are written down in the history books, the stories that are known, the really loud voices who had the time and space to dedicate their lives. But there's so much more, so many more invitations that we can accept into this resistance. For any protest, any action, any of the big things where there's speeches and the people get arrested and all of that, there are so many layers to that resistance. There's the planners, there's the marshals, the people who help keep folks in line and safe, the folks who aren't at the protest so they can do jail support and help bail people out. There's the letter writers, the fundraisers, the people cooking meals and making food deliveries. There are layers to this resistance. The ask, the invitation that we are receiving is not inherently to take on all of them, but instead to take on something more. In seminary, I had the privilege to take a class on nonviolent civil resistance movements with Dr. Erica Chenoweth, who is a phenomenal scholar of civil resistance movements and just put out a book that's going to say way more than what I can fit into it. It is a really great read. The first thing that the first piece they started the class with was that nonviolent resistance movements win. That in looking across the world over the last 50 plus years and documenting different types of resistance movements, nonviolent resistance movements win, and they win more and with more solid success than violent resistance movements. They started the class with the idea that this is possible. And another key piece is the size of that resistance. Their studies and groups of international studies over decades had given the information that the tipping point for the population, the amount of people needed for a movement to win, was about 3.5%. That's folks that are involved in a substantial way and a sustained way that's not including the passive support, the folks that are, I'm on board, but I'm not in it. And there's challenges to that number, but less than 5% of the population needs to be involved. And those two facts, I feel like, give me hope. Give me a sense that my voice and energy is worth it, that there actually is an ability to make a difference, to have influence, that it can work. And there's lots of different ideas of what resistance movements need to be or what that looks like in this country, and we have so many things coming at us on so many levels that it's hard to say there is one specific resistance movement. But instead, I want to just rest in knowing that it can work and knowing the idea that small groups of people can actually make a difference is true. It is a privilege and an honor to be invited into taking risk. It's also terrifying. It's also confusing. It's also overwhelming. But it is a privilege and an honor as well to have built relationships that other folks know you or our community are safe enough people to go on this journey of resistance together. That being invited in to take on more, while terrifying and hard, is also a privilege and an honor. And a responsibility. Not inherently to say yes to whatever is being asked, but instead to ask ourselves, what is the actual fear that I'm feeling right now? What is it that I am actually afraid of? And what is the actual risk? Because the other week on those State House steps, my gut instinct of protection, I already was fearing for this youth, had other fears of broader violence, didn't feel like I could control the situation. And yet, at that same time, I know that the actual risk was small compared to what my fear was. That my fear felt overwhelming, but the things I was afraid of were not actually likely in those moments. When we're faced with the idea of how do I get involved, or what risk do I take on, or what does civil disobedience mean to me, I want us to break down those fears of risk. Because it's really easy for us to just get on that almost moving sidewalk of risk, of saying, but I'm afraid of this, and that part will lead to this, and I can't control what the legislature is doing, I can't control what white supremacists are doing, I can't control all of these pieces. And there is real concern and risk there. But our fear jumps onto the moving sidewalk before our actions do. And our fear sometimes gets in the way of our actions taking those first couple of steps. Early in this year, I was having a conversation with some board members about the abortion bans and questions around risk and how do we navigate that as a community. And what I could say in response to that was, I can't guarantee nothing will go wrong. I can't guarantee that someone or some organization wouldn't be sued. I can't guarantee what risk is, but I can say I know that if something were to happen, we would not be alone, that we would have tons of communities and organizations and people and allies at our back and with us in it. I know that we would not be alone, and I know that at the end of it, we probably would be pretty proud of our actions. The impulse for silence in the face of risk will not protect us. The feeling of, but there's something, like there is a risk here, I have a fear here, and it is safer to not say anything, safer to not get involved, safer to not put myself at risk. That impulse does not actually protect us and has never protected us. And if it has protected us individually, that is from our own privilege, and it has never been true for folks of color, for folks who are marginalized in so many other ways. That impulse for silence and the response of fear will not ever protect us. And so this is an invitation to take on the question of what is the fear? What is the risk? To have the conversation together about how do we take on a little bit more? How do we stretch ourselves? How do we imagine one more way, whether it's in the law books or not, to be able to support our community and our voices together? Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Spirit of all that is within and between us, be with us now as we are with each other. Be with us in the hard questions, in the fear and the struggle, and also the joy and celebration. Be with us as we figure out how to have a voice, how to support, and also how to live our very human lives and have our own space for rest, for joy, for connection, for protection of our loved ones. Spirit of life, help hold us in these questions and help us to get a little bit of wind at our backs when we're willing to ask them. For all of this we pray. Blessed be. I invite you to stay standing and put your hands over your heart for the closing blessing. May we rise together. May we support each other. May we know each other's strength and courage. We extinguish the flame of our chalice, but not our hope for the future, our courage in the face of crisis, or the love we share in all the world. Go in peace.